They told you this was the greatest era in human history, that we've never been more free, more comfortable, more connected. With one tap, you can talk to someone halfway across the planet. Swipe your finger, and the world entertains you endlessly. If you've got money, you can have anything you want without leaving your bed. Sounds like freedom, doesn't it? But let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt truly at peace inside your own mind? Can you feel it? Behind the neon lights, beneath the constant scroll, there's something quietly missing. A kind of emptiness that technology can't fix. A restlessness that comfort can't cure. A low hum in your chest, like the buzz of a refrigerator at 3 a.m., always there. Barely noticeable. Until you're alone. And suddenly, it's all you hear. Because even though we have everything we're missing, the one thing that makes any of it matter, meaning Machiavelli once said men are more easily deceived by appearances than by reality. And modernity is the most seductive appearance ever crafted. They sold us the dream of progress, but took something in return. They took the core of what makes us human. Not productivity, not success, but the quiet journey of becoming. From the moment we were children, we were handed a script. Study hard, get a good job, buy the house, climb the ladder, and one day be happy. We believed it, not because it was true, but because everyone else did. And that's the tragedy. We weren't betrayed by a lie. We were betrayed by a belief. Because the most powerful systems don't enslave you by force, they convince you that you're already free. That's the brilliance of modern life. No cages, just distractions. Not tyrants, just silent expectations. It doesn't say no to you. It just keeps you too busy to question anything. So if you've ever felt like something's wrong, if a quiet voice in you has ever whispered, "This isn't it," maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're starting to wake up. I didn't make this video to preach. I made it because I've been there. And if you hear your own story in these words, say something in the comments. Tell me what's been weighing on your mind. If this message speaks to you, hit the like button, not for the algorithm, but to signal that you're done pretending. And if you're ready to see the world through a different lens, subscribe, because what's coming next might just change the way you see everything. They told us progress would save us, that every breakthrough would bring us closer to fulfillment, that the future would be brighter, cleaner, easier. But no one told us the cost. Now we live in a world where everything works except us. The machines are faster, the systems smoother, the updates automatic. But we feel more disconnected than ever. Not from the world, but from ourselves. We don't lack excess. We lack anchor. We don't lack options. We lack direction. Modern life has become a performance. Every day, we wear our roles like armor. Be productive. Be impressive. Be always on. We chase goals we didn't choose. Using apps we didn't build. To impress people we don't even like. And the fastest runners, they get the loudest applause. But no one stops to ask, where are we all going? You wake up already behind. Scroll through curated highlight reels. Feel envy before you even finish your coffee. Then you dive into the day, chasing numbers, checking boxes, smiling through fatigue. And at night, when the world finally quiets, that hum returns. Not sadness, not pain, just that soft, aching whisper that something important is missing. This is the paradox. The more we upgrade, the emptier we feel. The more tools we build, the more lost we become. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't believe in idealism. He studied power code. honest, and raw. He saw that people are not ruled by logic, but by fear. And in today's world, fear doesn't come with a sword. It comes with a schedule. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of stopping. You're taught that your worth is in your output. Your value is in your usefulness. But this isn't growth. It's extraction. The system doesn't want you whole. It wants you functional. It doesn't care if you're fulfilled. It cares if you're efficient. And here's the cruel genius. When your worth is measured by performance, you'll never feel like enough. There's always more to prove. More to do. More to earn. So you keep running. Not because you love it, but because you're terrified of what happens if you stop. Who are you without the next goal? Without the next achievement? Without the applause? This isn't freedom. It's a treadmill dressed up like a staircase. You move faster, try harder, but you never arrive. And when exhaustion hits you, don't blame the system. You blame yourself. You call yourself lazy, unmotivated, broken. But maybe you're just not meant to live like this. Maybe the problem isn't your discipline. Maybe it's the design. A design that rewards noise over depth. That praises urgency over clarity. That replaces meaning with motion. And the truth is, as long as you keep chasing, you'll never ask why you started running in the first place. That's how the machine survives, by keeping you too busy to ever ask what you've become. But when you finally pause, when you dare to breathe, to be still, to feel, something shifts. Because stillness isn't weakness. It's power. The kind of power they fear. If that moment is coming for you, or if you feel like it already has, don't run from it. Let it happen. And if this resonates, if you feel something stirring, don't just watch and scroll. Like this video and subscribe if you're ready to go deeper. The next part, it gets darker, but also more honest. And that's where the real clarity begins. You didn't choose most of what shaped you. From the moment you were born, the system began its quiet work. Not with force, not with fear, but with routine. Sit still. Raise your hand. Follow the rules. Wait your turn. Get the right answers. And when you did, you were praised, rewarded, told you were a good kid. But did anyone ever stop to ask, good for what? Not for thinking independently. Not for asking uncomfortable questions. Not for seeing beyond the lines, but for becoming exactly what the machine needed: efficient, predictable, replaceable. By the time you reached adulthood, your identity was no longer your own. It had been built from report cards, performance reviews, filtered feedback loops. You were handed titles, numbers, boxes to fit in. No one had to control you directly, because you learned to control yourself. Out of fear, out of habit. Is that freedom? Or is it the most elegant form of obedience ever invented? We live in a world where submission doesn't scream, it whispers. Where the chains are invisible, but the expectations are loud. You wake to alarms, commute through silence, sit beneath fluorescent lights, smile at people you barely know, nod at meetings that drain your soul, then go home and scroll through highlight reels of others doing the same. And you call this normal, because everyone else does too. But tell me this, have you ever stopped and asked, what exactly are we building here? What kind of life are we agreeing to? By default, Machiavelli once wrote that true power doesn't come from force. It comes from framing, from shaping what people believe is possible. He understood that control over perception was far more durable than control over bodies. And that's what modernity has perfected. It doesn't forbid rebellion. It brands it, monetizes it, turns it into fashion. Speak out, and your words become a trend, a soundbite, a quote on a hoodie, Your frustration becomes content. Your outrage, engagement. You're not a threat. You're a product. The machine doesn't crush you like the tyrants of the past. It seduces you, distracts you, numbs you. It gives you a curated menu of rebellion. Pick your favorite cause. Post the right opinion. Buy the ethical product. And feel like you made a difference. But did you? Or did you just feed the machine? Again, even your rest has been colonized. Your entertainment, designed. Your free time, monetized. You don't choose how to recharge. You're handed options. Pre-approved. Algorithm approved. And so you scroll. You binger. You escape, but never arrive. Because the machine doesn't need you to be broken. It needs you to be distracted. Too tired to think. Too busy to resist. And here's the dangerous part. After a while, the cage starts to feel like home. You decorate it. Optimize it. Make it efficient. You take pride in playing the game well. And you forget it's a game at all. So let me ask you, when was the last time you made a decision not based on expectation but on conviction? When was the last time you stepped outside the script and asked yourself, who wrote this for me? Because this script wasn't written with your wholeness in mind. It was written for productivity, for predictability, for obedience. And the more you conform, the more applause you get. But the quieter your soul becomes. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've become a perfectly functioning machine with no idea who's driving it. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Because the moment you pause, truly pause, you begin to see the machinery for what it is. You begin to notice the gears turning, the expectations conditioning you, the fears guiding you, and you start asking dangerous questions. What am I actually chasing? Who told me I had to live like this? What would happen if I stopped playing their game? These questions are not easy, but they're necessary. Because only when you see the cage can you begin to walk toward the door. And maybe you won't know what's outside yet. Maybe the unknown feels terrifying, but it's real, and that alone makes it more worthy than anything synthetic the machine can offer. So if this stirred something in you, if you felt the machinery grinding against your spirit, don't ignore it. Leave a comment. Tell me what part of this hits hardest. Like this video, if you've ever felt like a cog in a system that was never designed for your soul, and subscribe because the next part breaks down the illusion of freedom itself. And trust me, once you see it, you'll never unsee it. They told us we were free. Free to choose. Free to speak. Free to live however we want. But what they gave us wasn't freedom. It was options. And options are not the same as liberation. You can choose from 1,000 brands, but you can't choose to step outside the system that makes you buy them. You can post 100 opinions, but try questioning the narrative and watch how quickly the silence falls. Modern freedom is like a touchscreen in a prison cell. You get to scroll, you get to tap, but the walls, they're still there. The machine doesn't need to chain you. It just needs you to feel busy, to feel like you're choosing, to feel like you're moving forward. But ask yourself, when was the last time you sat still and felt truly free? Today. Freedom looks like access, like convenience, like infinite stimulation. But what if that's just the bait? What if the real trap is deeper? Machiavelli didn't write about comfort. He wrote about control, and he knew that a ruler doesn't need to take power by force if he can convince people to surrender it willingly. And isn't that what's happening now? We've traded real autonomy for personalized feeds, for smart devices, for dopamine on demand. We're not being silenced. We're being seduced by comfort, by novelty, by the never-ending illusion that the next click will finally make us feel whole. But it never does it? Because this system wasn't built to set you free. It was built to keep you engaged. As long as you're watching, scrolling, tapping, reacting, you're not resisting that. You're participating. And participation is not power. It's distraction. Try doing nothing for one day. No scrolling. Not checking. No producing. Just silence. You'll feel it instantly. That tightening in your chest. That guilt. Because the machine has trained you to believe that stillness is laziness. That silence is failure. That rest is weakness. But that's the lie. The real weakness is being unable to face yourself without a screen in between. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." In today's world, the wise man is the one who pauses, who disconnects, who asks hard questions. Like, what is this actually costing me? How much of my life is truly mine? When did freedom become a feeling instead of a reality? We're not chained by force. We're held by habit, and it's harder to break than any lock. Because when the world tells you you can be anything, do anything, buy anything, it's hard to admit that what you've become isn't actually you. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you made a choice that wasn't based on fear or pressure or the need to be seen? When was the last time you moved not to fit in, not to win, but to feel real? Freedom isn't about having 5 pre-approved paths. It's about having the courage to carve your own. But carving your own path is terrifying. Because no one's clapping. No one's watching. There's no applause for choosing silence in a world addicted to noise. And yet that's where the truth begins. Because freedom, real freedom, isn't about what you can do. It's about what you no longer need to do just to feel like you matter. And until you find that, until you peel away the roles, the masks, the metrics, you'll never meet the person underneath. But once you do, once you see the machine for what it is, and stop dancing to its rhythm, that's when you finally taste it. Not the illusion, but the real thing. And it's quieter than you expected, but stronger than anything you've ever known. If that hits something deep in you, if you felt the weight of pretending, if you're ready to remember who you were before the noise hit, leave a comment and subscribe, because what comes next is the most dangerous part of all. We're going to talk about desire and how the system uses it to keep you forever unsatisfied. The system doesn't want you fulfilled. It wants you hungry, not starving. Just unsettled, just uncomfortable enough to keep reaching for the next thing. You were trained to want, to chase, to crave. Not because you're weak, but because the machine taught you that satisfaction is dangerous. Because a man who's truly at peace can't be manipulated, can't be sold anything, can't be controlled. But if he's restless, if he feels like something is always missing, he'll buy, he'll scroll. He'll work himself into the ground, chasing a finish line that never existed. Every ad you see, every influencer you follow, every shiny solution the world offers, you has one thing in common. It's built on the assumption that you're not enough yet. That you need one more product, one more habit, one more upgrade, and then you'll finally be whole. But wholeness isn't profitable. Rest doesn't keep the economy running. So the machine feeds you a steady diet of emptiness, seasoned with just enough hope to keep you going. You buy something and for a moment you feel a rush, a flicker of arrival. Then it fades, and you start scanning again. It's not a glitch. It's the design. Because dissatisfaction isn't an accident. It's the engine. Machiavelli knew that you don't need to crush people to control them. You just need to keep them chasing. He watched leaders distract the masses with promises of future glory while quietly tightening their grip on the present. Sound familiar? Today, the technique hasn't changed. Only the tools. You're not forced to run. You're conditioned to believe that stillness means failure. That if you're not grinding, not building, not manifesting something, you're wasting your life. But tell me, what exactly are we building? And who decided that your worth should be measured by your output? You've been taught to equate success with accumulation. More followers, more money, more validation. But no one tells you that even when you win the game, the prize is more playing. You hit the goal, and instantly, a new one appears. You climb the ladder, and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. You earn the praise, but still feel invisible. And late at night, when everything slows down, there it is again, that whisper, "This isn't it." Not because you're ungrateful, not because you're broken, but because deep down you know this system was never designed to fulfill you, only to keep you moving. You've been living from the outside in, through likes, through numbers, through reflections of yourself in other people's eyes. But what happens when the applause stops? When the feed goes quiet? Who are you then? Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does not waste time chasing what he cannot hold." And yet here we are, chasing approval, chasing pleasure, chasing ghosts. You've been promised satisfaction, but what you're being sold is stimulation, and stimulation fades fast. So you keep going, not because it's working, but because stopping would mean confronting the truth. That maybe, just maybe, you've spent your whole life chasing something that was never yours to begin with. But that truth, as brutal as it is also where real freedom begins. Because when you see the engine, when you recognize the cycle, you don't have to run anymore. You can stop, breathe, and ask the only question that matters. What if the problem isn't me? What if it's the map? If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right but still feel hollow, still feel like you're missing something essential, say something in the comments. Don't let the silence swallow you. Hit like if this touched a truth you've been trying to ignore. Subscribe, because the next part dives into something even more dangerous. What happens when meaning itself starts to disappear? And what happens to a man when he no longer knows why he's living at all? We live in a world that moves faster than ever, but no one can tell you where it's going. You're told to set goals, to crush milestones, to build a legacy, but when you ask why, you get silence. Not because people are stupid, but because they've never been taught to ask that question in the first place. In this world, meaning has become optional, an accessory. Something you sprinkle on top of your hustle when you're not too exhausted to feel. But when did meaning become a luxury? Why is it that with all our knowledge, all our tools, all our endless connections, so many people still wake up and whisper, "What's the point?" It's not because they're weak. It's because the system gave them motion instead of direction. We've confused movement with purpose, burnout with ambition, hustle with worth. And in the process, we forgot something ancient, something sacred. Machiavelli never romanticized meaning. He wasn't a poet. He was a strategist. But even he understood that without purpose, men become vulnerable to manipulation, to fear, to collapse. Because a man without meaning has no compass, no inner gravity, no reason to endure pain or resist temptation, no anchor in the storm. And that man, he'll believe anything, buy anything, follow anyone who offers a temporary fix for an existential ache. And society knows this. That's why it offers substitutes. Success, fame, followers, status. None of them are built to last. Because meaning doesn't come from what you gain. It comes from what you're willing to sacrifice for something greater. But what happens when there's nothing left that feels greater? What happens when every cause is corrupted? Every leader performative? Every belief commodified? You fall inward. Your soul shrinks. And slowly, without even realizing it, you trade depth for noise. You start living from the surface, curating, performing, projecting, until one day you collapse. Not dramatically, not with a scream, but quietly, alone, in your car, or in the shower, or in a room full of people who think you're fine. You realize you've done everything right. You followed the rules. You built the image. You chased the goals. And yet you feel empty. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded at a life that was never truly yours. That's the real crisis. Not that people are tired. Not that people are lost. But that they no longer know why they're doing any of it. You ask a man what drives him, he says success. You ask what success means, he says freedom. You ask what freedom is for, and he stares at you blank. Silent, because he was never taught to look inward, only to perform, only to impress. So we build lives that look amazing but feel hollow, chasing praise from people we secretly envy, hoping it will finally silence the question we're too afraid to face. Am I living, or just performing a version of life that someone else wrote for me? Machiavelli said, "The man who is unarmed with truth will always be at the mercy of those who carry illusion." And today, the man who has not wrestled with his own emptiness will be enslaved by whatever comes next. Because something will always fill the void, even if it poisons him slowly. Validation is a drug. Productivity is a drug. Distraction is a drug. And every drug loses its effect, until finally you're left with the same question you started with. Only this time you're older, tired, and full of regret. But there is a way back. It's not louder, not shinier, not more. It's deeper. It's in the silence, in the solitude, in the decision to stop performing and start listening to the ache, to the questions, to the truth inside you that never stopped whispering. Because the man who no longer needs permission to seek meaning is the man who cannot be enslaved. He doesn't bend to opinion. He doesn't chase applause. He doesn't sell his soul for acceptance. That man is dangerous. Not because he's violent, but because he's rooted, unshakable, clear. That's the kind of man the system fears. Because he's not just alive, he's awake. And once you wake up, you don't go back to sleep. So if this part of the journey resonated, even if it stung a little, even if it cracked something open in you, leave a comment. Let this be the first place you stop pretending. Hit like not for the algorithm, but to mark the moment you started asking better questions. Subscribe, because in the final part we return to the only place that still holds the answer. Yourself. You did everything they told you. You followed the rules, checked the boxes, played the part. You got the degree, landed the job, built the image, built the life. But deep down, you know, it didn't work. The titles didn't make you whole. The money didn't silence the ache. The recognition didn't bring peace. Because peace isn't something the world gives you. It's something you find when you come back to what you abandoned first. Yourself. Not the brand. Not the role. Not the mask you've been perfecting for years. But the raw, honest, unfinished self that's been buried beneath all that noise. And that journey back, it's not glamorous. It won't get likes. No one claps for solitude. But it's real. Machiavelli never sugarcoated human nature. He understood it in all its beauty and brutality. He saw that power wasn't about dominance. It was about clarity. Clarity over the lies you've been sold. Clarity over the illusions you've accepted. Clarity over the self you've forgotten. Because once you strip away the applause, once you stop running, stop chasing, stop performing, what's left isn't weakness. It's sovereignty. The kind of sovereignty no system can give you, and no system can take away. The man who returns to himself moves differently. He used to rush. Now he moves with intention. He used to chase answers. Now he asks better questions. He speaks less, but says more. He doesn't seek validation because he no longer doubts his worth. He's not reactive. He's intentional. He doesn't perform. He chooses. And in a world designed to keep you lost, to keep you distracted, to keep you small, that kind of presence, is rebellion. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, who are you when no one's watching? When there's no one to impress, no score to keep, no script to follow? Are you proud of that person? Do you know that person at all? Because here's the truth, if you don't know who you are, someone else will decide for you, and they'll shape your life. Not around your soul, but around their profit. The machine doesn't care who you are. It just needs you useful, available, obedient. But you were not born to be useful. You were born to be real, to stand, to feel, to create, to remember. So stop asking the world to define you. It never could. Start with one decision. Not a big one, just one small act of defiance. Turn off the noise. Breathe. Be still. Listen. Because underneath the programming, the pressure, the performance, you're still there, waiting to be reclaimed, to be remembered, to be rebuilt. And when you do, when you finally stop outsourcing your identity and come home to your own voice, something shifts. The machine loses power, and you, for the first time in a long time, feel alive. Not excited, not stimulated, alive. So if something in this message spoke to you, not your mind, but that part of you you've been avoiding, don't let it fade. Sit with it. Wrestle with it. Let it burn if it has to. Because real transformation always starts with discomfort. And if you think someone else needs to hear this, someone quietly struggling behind a screen, someone who's almost given up, but not quite, share this with them. Click like not for me, but to push this truth further into a system that buries anything real. Subscribe not for content, but for clarity. Because you've spent long enough out there, and the world, as loud as it is, has nothing more valuable to offer you than this one quiet truth. It's time to come home.